Sometimes you don't know when somebody's just being rude to you or somebody's being racial. Sometimes it's very hard, and that's what makes being a black woman sometimes very difficult in the workplace, because you don't always know, is it because of my gender? Is it because I'm black? Is it neither and you just don't like me? What is going on? Yeah. I like street principles. If you've got an issue with me, let's talk about it. But that's not how work is. Work is like I go to your manager, you're getting called in. I heard you had an issue with Tom.
Yeah.
And you're looking at Tom like, did we have an issue?
As you're speaking, 3 words come to mind: seen, loved, and approved.
Chunks of life, chunks of passion, chunks of entertainment, chunks of relationships. So give me some more, give me some more, give me some more. Give me some more, give me some more, give me some more.
So Deeper with Mo, it's basically after my interview with Kanayo, I was like, I would really love to have more guests, kind of share their stories, where they've come from, who they are now, everything that's kind of led up to now, basically. So let's get deeper.
Deeper.
Take me deeper, deeper in love with you. That's a gospel song. But Ngozi, obviously I know who you are. But okay, tell us your name. Why am I saying your name?
There's your name, where you live, where you come from, your age, when you're doing forms.
So this is Ngozi Cadmus, a frontline therapist.
Yes.
And for those that are watching that have never heard of frontline therapist, tell us what that's all about.
Frontline therapist is a mental health counselling service that provides mental health therapy to inaccessible populations, to Black and Asian individuals primarily, not exclusively, but to provide accessibility and affordability nationwide.
Okay. And how long has that been running for?
Good question. I've been doing this since 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's been a while.
Yeah, 2018. And you've been serving, BAME communities. I guess a good question to ask is, why BAME? Why did you go towards ethnic minorities as, the people that you wanted to serve in the area of mental health?
Very good question. I think it's because as a social worker, psychotherapist, and the person who sectioned people, at a time, not necessarily currently now, because the area I work in, I section a lot of Eastern European people, but in a lot of boroughs... So you still
section people now?
Yeah.
Okay.
In a lot of boroughs, especially inner London, you are unfortunately putting a lot of people that look like you in hospital. Quite rightly, because they're unwell. However, we understand what research shows in terms of the overrepresentation of Black people specifically, but also Asian people in mental health system coming via the criminal justice or at the point of crisis. And then the underrepresentation of Black people and Asian people in psychotherapy or in psychological services. When it comes to IAPT, the NHS kind of therapy service, they're either less referred or don't really access that support and help. So it's interesting. How can we be most diagnosed, most likely to be in hospital on the section, but then not getting psychological help?
Okay.
Something is going wrong there. Psychotherapy can be very expensive for a lot of people, and let's be real, the socioeconomic factors that impact Black and Asian individuals at a large scale in mass, not necessarily every single person, we are most socially economically disadvantaged. So that means that the people that have the most needs don't have enough money to heal or to seek treatment. So in that sense, it's the provision is there because I'm trying to get us to an equal playing field, right? Because I said it many things. Unfortunately, Black people specifically are over in anything bad. We're more likely to die giving childbirth. We're more likely to be in prison. We're more likely to be on certain type of drugs. It's like, how many more likely are we going to be? But when it's all the amazing things, we're less likely. We're less likely to be in leadership. We're less likely to get awards. We're less likely to get investment. Something is wrong there. Are we not tired of the less and the more and the less and the more? So what can we do to balance that gap? What can we do to increase the likelihood that we are seeking that help? Not at the point of crisis either. So the people are coming to my service not having mental health crisis. They're coming in at the point of, I just think I should talk to somebody. Yes, amazing. Come in now. Don't wait until 10 years later or 30 years later when you're so suppressed or when you break down and have a mental health crisis. So I started it because the people that I serve are the most in need of it. Now, I'm not saying they're more in need than white people, no, but they're most in need in terms of stats. The stats say it. So, because I say this because white people say, oh, what, we're saying that we don't need it. You do need it, but stats are not telling us that you are more likely to be detained. They're saying that we are more likely to be detained and we are less likely to be referred. You guys have your own issues, but race isn't part of that issue. It's other factors that might be part of that issue. So there could be class, because within the white population, and that can include, Europeans, and then that can include British people, it can include gypsies. There are other different things that they face that make it harder for them to access support. But when it comes to us, we have all of that, and on top of it, race.
Yeah.
So it is a class thing. There's some middle class black people that can afford therapy. So they will pay £50, £70, £80, but not all of us are middle class, are we? So you've got that disparity within that. But the biggest factor within all of that is, racial distrust of mental health services. And, anyone that wants to challenge what I say, research papers in the 80s and 90s, the same issues that we're facing today as the black population and Asian population is the same issues then. Unfortunately, the statistics have not changed. The statistics say in 1980 and 90s that we were more likely to be detained in hospital as well. So nothing could change in 20, 30 years.
Wow. So still disenfranchised.
Yeah, that's it. Now we can talk about the reasons. I'm not going to say everything is just racism and everything is just the system. There are things that we've got to take accountability as a community. But when you look at research, it hasn't changed. It isn't like there was something different in the 90s and 80s and there's something different now. It actually seems like it's gotten worse, not any better. So the question to me then is said, these issues are prominent, that's why the service exists.
Right, and just to kind of make it clear for the audience as well, what makes your service different from regular other services in terms of pricing or maybe even the psychotherapists that are available?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess the key thing is it's affordable, and again that's relative, because £30 per session, unfortunately a lot of people still can't even afford that, which is really sad. All the counsellors are in training, so any service that you usually will see that is affordable is because the counsellors are in training. Any qualified therapists, and there are therapists that do have a deduction in their fee, but it's hard to find a therapist charging 10, 20, 30 quid, because you can't live on that as a therapist, can you? You can't live on that. So any service that you should come out, the only low-cost service, many low-cost services, but not many doing what I do, and maybe not many in your area, because sometimes it's a postcode lottery. Some areas have more in abundance, some areas don't have any. Any service that you see that's low-cost and very affordable is usually because we're using counsellors that are in training, so therapists that are becoming qualified like myself. So you're able to do low, but if not, then it's very hard to create a service that's going to be affordable, because I charge low compared to some of my colleagues, but I charge 60 per session, which is high for some people. But it's also low in contrast to a lot of my colleagues. They charge 80, 90. With my experience, I should charge 100, but I don't, because then the people that I want to work with wouldn't be able to afford me. Oh. So I keep my price at the same price. I have not changed for 4 years. Normally I should change with inflation, right? I haven't changed my price, because then who would afford me?
Yeah, and based on your actual, the people you want to serve.
Yeah,
which is,
people will pay me big money, then I take that. I do other things to make up the windfall and the shortfall. Yeah. But you see the work they have to do just to make up the windfall and the shortfall, where some people just say they're charging £100 and they then target certain type of class, because that's across all boards. Any white person paying £100 probably is in a different class than anybody else paying maybe even 50 or 40 or 60. So a lot of therapists realise that when they qualify, wow, if I want to serve my community, and my community is not always black, it could be another community, whatever community that is, pricing ends up having to be lower than what you potentially, let's say deserve, but not even worth, but can get. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's important, because just funny enough, we were debating maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, depending on when this episode is out, we're debating about wedding services. Very different from mental health. But we're debating about the cost of that, and how, it seems like the service has become more of a luxury than affordable. Mm-hmm. And it's really important, because I think someone even raised a point there where they said, if people are, if vendors are really watching this and, taking it in, they'll realize that there's a niche for creating affordable services for the people that you're trying to target, because you need to know your audience, right? And something that someone also said was that they're charging celebrity prices to regular people. And a point that I raised...
people are paying it, though. Regular people are paying it.
Yeah, they are, but they're putting themselves in debt to pay these things. You know how weddings go.
But the thing is, you know what? Oh, that's a good debate. Not to go on too much, but There are vendors that are more affordable.
Yeah, there are.
And usually when you start, you're more affordable. Yeah. But the issue is that human beings don't want to take time to find that. When you're looking for vendors, and usually people leave things last minute, so when you look for things last minute, your options are limited. You go to the names, you go to the people that you'll say, I saw that big wedding, right? So I can't say my wedding was affordable, but I organised my wedding a year and a bit before it was done. I organised it in 2 weeks. In terms of I got all the vendors in 2 weeks. I did it a whole year and a bit. So by 2 weeks' time, I already had all my vendors. It was just now about paying them and sorting all of that stuff out. And that was pre the pandemic, so obviously the pandemic postponed it another year and a bit. Yeah. But if the pandemic didn't go through, I organised my wedding in 2 weeks. But most people don't they leave it to last minute. Yeah. They don't organise in time. So I totally agree with you. So I looked for good quality but affordable. Yeah. So I bypassed all the. I went to the property people, so I want to know their set. I want to get a sense of the money,
the industry. The industry pricing,
first. So when I saw some of the big dogs at 4 or 5, then I knew anything that's 3 or 2 is decent. Because if everybody's doing 4 or 5, I know that's the top pricing. And anything 3 or 2.
But that's the thing now. It's now becoming like even.
It's more than that.
Yeah.
Hey!
Yeah.
For photography and videography.
Oh, videography has increased. Oh no.
I feel sorry for you guys. Just go to.
Well, my point with that, I don't want to bring that debate up again, but my point with that, what I was trying to say there is that, I think it's important for there to be. I'm not saying everybody has to. I'm not saying every professional has to do this, but I'm saying I think it's beautiful to have people who are thinking of those that can't necessarily afford. Industry standards.
We have to have a heart for it, because it's the sacrifice that I know I have to make in my business too, because I pay the VAT, I have to cover VAT. If I put VAT on top of what people pay, it's no longer affordable. And VAT is crippling every single quarter, every quarter, plus tax. So the level of sacrifice that I have to make to create it affordable, it comes at a heavy price, and I think that's why a lot of people don't do it, because we can say, let's make it affordable, but how many creators want to be charged to be paid lower than what they know they can pay? They can be paid.
It's really important that you mentioned that you have other things that you do to kind of balance it up. One mentality that I've recently adopted is my money is not with you. And let me explain what I mean by that. In a sense of, I know there are corporations that will pay me triple figures, 4 figures to do what maybe a startup who also has a heart for, they want me to come and do like a speaking engagement or whatever it is, they don't have funding. My mentality with the startups and the individuals that are not able to afford my regular rates is my money's not with you. I may be called to serve in that area, but that's not where my money is. My money is with the bigger corporations, with the big bucks and the big the funding, and I can charge. And it doesn't hurt them in any way, shape or form. So like I've just recently adopted that my money's not with you. Do you get what I mean? Like if I'm going to do it because I feel led by God to do it for less money, I'll do it knowing that I'm called to serve there, but that's not where I'm meant to earn. There's a slight... That's just a mentality that's been helping me to just weigh things up. Okay, I am called to serve them, but they're not necessarily the ones that are called to pay me. And money comes from different directions, especially when you're doing this thing with God. Like, not to go spiritual, you guys, but there's different avenues that money comes from that sometimes you don't even have to work for. I'm not saying that it's a reward system or like God blesses you because you did this or but I've personally found in my journey that there's some things that I will do for less money, and then there's corporations that will pay me more. And even beyond, it's more than money. Sometimes I say no because maybe I don't have time, or I'll just be... Something I'm learning recently is to conserve my energy. Like, I don't want to be burnt out because I'm serving. I'm already serving in my home. Like I'm already serving my friends and my family. And then I don't want to be burnt out because I'm serving everybody else. So that's another factor that I've been kind of putting into it. But then regardless, I think what you're doing is beautiful. And I think it's good to have, like you said, because money is important. It's good to have those different services that, people pay you higher amounts for, that kind of helps you to balance things out. But I kind of want to go deeper into your personal story. I know we've talked about, the reasons why you've chosen to serve like ethnic minorities. In your role as a social worker, you've had to unfortunately sections on people, who look like black and, Asian people.
You are brothers and sisters, literally.
Yeah, literally. And that's,
aunties and uncles, parents.
Yeah, and that's really like, pulled on your heart to serve them at the stage before it gets that bad. But I want to get into your personal story. About who you are, like where you come from, and maybe your personal experiences with like mental health as well. Has there been any time in your life, and you don't have to disclose deeply if you're not comfortable, but to where you're comfortable, has there been any time in your life where you've personally battled with like mental health issues?
Yeah, and I think it's a lifelong thing. So my mental health journey is not a at one time, even though maybe the severity at one time was greater. But yeah, I think for most of my life I've had depression. That was my biggest thing, depression, and I was very. I don't know what you can say on YouTube, but I had suicidal ideation for a lot of my life. Just constant thoughts of wanting to end my life and not be here, not feel like my life was worth it, which I think a lot of your audience will resonate with. That sometimes it's not the acuity, because I guess I got to differentiate the acuity when you're making plans and you've got a date set and all of this different stuff, with just the rumination of constantly thinking that life is really bad and doesn't want to be there. You just think everyone would be better off without you here, etc., etc. That was kind of like a natural pathway. I actually thought everyone else was. I didn't know. You don't always know that it's not normal to think like that until you get older and you start to talk to people and go, oh, you can't clock that. This is not how everybody thinks. That's just how I always thought growing up, because of me being bullied and the trauma that I experienced. It was just a normal part of my life. So the same way you drink water was the same way I woke up wanting to die and went to bed wanting to die. Just thought it was a natural part of my existence.
You didn't think it was abnormal?
No, not when I was young, no. It was part of my life. It was like being dark-skinned. It was like, I can't change it. So I thought it was just part of me being Ngozi, one part of my life. Because I think one thing I like to also explain that not all, but many people are depressed or anxious or have any mental health disorder. You're not in that all the time. So just because I'm depressed doesn't mean that I won't be happy and joyful and excited. I was all of those, as well as also being very depressed, and that really manifested at home. So most people wouldn't see that. Most people would be shocked if they heard, "Oh my God, you was depressed," because I was the life of the party, always happy, and usually I usually call that, and a lot of people now are realizing, called high function depression. Yeah. We know that with DJ Twitch, that's maybe what he was suffering from, because like he does a TikTok 2 days before, next minute we hear he's gone, and that's the manifestation of some people's depression. It's not always like doom and gloom and you go into their house and it's dark and you're like, where are you? And you're not bathing. Yeah, that might be there as well. And that does happen. And that is severe and that is very difficult. But some of us are smiling, we're gleeful, we're working, we're achieving, we're being ambitious, but inside we're dark. Just as dark as the other person who's manifesting it out physically. We're just not manifesting our darkness visibly the same way.
Yeah.
But it's just as intense and sometimes even more scary, because you live in a bicultural world. You live in one world where everyone thinks you're happy, but the real part of you is actually sad. And it's usually the only people that don't know you that find out. It's the only people that met me for the first time will say, you look sad. And I'd be like, okay. But that was it. They never said anything more. So, but none of my friends could see it. But I wouldn't let them see it anyways. But it was always people that I did not know, that I'd encountered, that will say, your eyes look sad, which I always found really interesting.
I guess it's maybe because they're not clouded by the bubbly personality.
Exactly.
And that's what people that are close to you tend to experience.
They don't want to see. Most people don't want to know your friends on pain. Like, and I have to give, like, because some of your audience might be young as well, 16. Please give your friends grace. Then they're not going to be your therapists. Maybe kids, the Gen Zs, are much better now because they've got more of the language that we didn't have as millennials and the Gen X's. But I'm not upsetting any of my friends because they wouldn't know at 15, 16. I'm even glad I didn't speak to them, because what would they have said? What would I have told them? But a lot of it is the teachers. Because now I've done enough reflection to it. A lot of teachers failed me. But I don't say that from a hard place, angry, I'm not bitter. But just realising that a lot of them did make failures because they didn't see. They saw my aggression and the way I manifested it after a certain time. Because when I first manifested my depression, I was quiet. So I was easily ignored. And just like teachers didn't understand me because I wouldn't really speak. And then once I kind of got over that and I manifested it in more bold and brash ways and being kicked out of class, it was just seen as being bad.
Yeah.
And now when you look at little girls and little boys, especially black boys and black girls, and you see that, I can see their pain. They're suffering. Not all of them. Some of them are little bad breeds. But majority of a lot of young people are just struggling. But it's not seen because it's not shown in palatable ways. Not everyone's going to show not everyone's going to come to school looking like that. Some of the most saddest people are the ones doing, we're doing all of that, but we're actually sad. We'll cuss you, but actually all we want somebody is to tell us, sit down and what's going on. But no one did that. We just get told to come out of class. You leave the classroom and then you get to get one long-ass lecture.
And then that's where the path starts from. You get excluded.
God is all grace, because the amount of times I can't tell you the amount of times I got suspended in my hand. It goes over my hand. I think it was just grace because I should have been kicked out of school. I think it was because there was a level of intelligence. I wasn't the smartest person, but majority in secondary school, teachers knew that I was actually not stupid. So that probably saved me and grace, because I should have been. The amount of times I got kicked out of school, they should have just told me to go to PRU. We thank God, because that would have been a different pathway I went through. But yeah, I got kicked out of school so many times, I can't even count. But I wasn't bad in the same way as other people were bad. I wouldn't just do the fire alarm. I wasn't that type of bad. I was just chit-chatty bad. I was obviously ADHD.
Like mouthing off,
Yeah, I was just understimulated.
You have ADHD as well.
Yeah, okay. So understimulated. And again, it's interesting because growing up, black kids were never diagnosed with ADHD. Now it's like we're overdiagnosed with ADHD. But black kids back in the 90s, we weren't diagnosed with ADHD. We were told we were bad. The level of I used to always fall on the floor. Not saying that there's obviously different ways that ADHD manifests, but I had now I look back on it, it was so obvious. But we're not given that grace. We're never given that grace. Yeah. And now we're told too much about ADHD. It's like, bro, this person has ADHD. Maybe this person just needs discipline. Not everybody's got ADHD. It's like we're overdiagnosed now. It's like we've gone roundabout, but still undiagnosed in other areas. But yeah, a lot of us kids just got misunderstood. And probably just needed a different curriculum. But it wouldn't have changed. So the reality is, I don't think I could have had education any other different, because the teachers got to do what they're told to do, and the school was boring. So I had to make it fun, and sometimes making it fun meant being bad.
Yeah.
Because it's either that you feel like you got to die, because you listen to English and you're just thinking, oh my God. But I loved Macbeth. So it's weird. I had that dichotomy that I loved school. I actually did not like being excluded. So when I was excluded, I would actually wait outside school. So I got excluded for fighting. So it wasn't I got excluded for doing things in school that were not doing work. I got excluded for fighting. But I love school, because what are you going to watch at home? Antique Roadshow.
Daytime TV.
Antique Roadshow at home? No. So that's what I'm saying, that when I think about it, I was failed by many teachers. But thankfully, God's grace, there was a net there, because those teachers never really ever saw who I truly was. God's grace was there. Not everyone had that. So I had a few angels in my life when I was fighting. Random people would take me from a fight. One time a bus driver, never forget this bus driver, he stopped the bus and dragged me out of a fight. Another lady took me out of a fight. She took me home. And then one guy never spoke to me before or after that, shouted my name and took me to my house. And those 3 instances shows me grace. Everyone, why you not take that person? They took me out, and they did touch me. Part of the reasons why I stopped fighting, because I said, you know what, I don't think this is a good thing. This is not a good look. This isn't really a good look. But yeah, I think that all of those experiences obviously culminated and contributed to my my depression. But because I was high functioning, I still achieved. It didn't affect me in other areas. Yeah. That's why for a lot of people it's hard. So, and if I saw myself, I'd probably think, oh my God, was I really depressed? If I didn't see what I knew what I was going through on my inside, if I looked externally, I would also be like, oh, are you depressed? What's going on there? Because once I'm out of my house,
the mask comes on.
Which I think, to be fair, rightly so. Because if I put my mask down, how would it have been handled? There was nobody appropriate to handle my depression anyway. So probably it saved me more than anything, because unfortunately, children can harm each other in terms of, like, you say I'm depressed, next week we're doing a S-Pact, which happens with school. You tell somebody, wrong person, next minute you're on websites looking for how to harm yourself, which was happening in my school, which I later find out. Thank God I didn't share with people maybe my S, because we might have done some collude and pacts, and I may not be here right now. So when I think about it, I can't think of any other way my childhood should have gone to create who I am today. And I'm just thankful that I'm here talking about it from a different place, because not everyone else gets the opportunity to.
Yeah. Wow. You've just dropped a lot on your
Is it? I'm saying the next question.
Wow. Yeah. And how did you... So we've kind of talked about your childhood and how that was affected. I'm really sorry that you kind of went through that, but I'm glad you're here. Like you said, I'm really, really glad you're here.
Thank you.
Impacting others. How did it affect you, or the depression from your childhood? How did that affect you when you now became an adult? Did that... Because I know...
It was there. It was still there, yeah. Depression. Yeah. Up until just a few years ago. I've only, I've only overcame not that long ago. Not that long ago. It's not like it was like 10 years ago.
Did it affect you in like relationships, friendships, just maneuvering life, jobs?
Do you know what? I've been very thankful. That's why I say I was high functioning. So no, I say it affected friendships, not in a direct way. It was just more, I was very not open. So those that remember me from, most of my friends now will be like, oh my God, Ngozi, you're so open, because probably some of them can't remember how guarded I was. Like, hey, how are you? I'm good, good. Next minute, we're talking about yourself. I could not speak about myself. But most of my friends didn't have an over issue with it, because one friend said something to me years ago. She said, the thing about you, Ngozi, is that you may not share about yourself, but anyone talking to you knows you've gone through something, like you've got substance. So I don't know, maybe that allowed me to kind of somewhat course through life being guarded, but seemingly open. And because most people, unless you were really deep, because I'm very extroverted people are very good at making it seem that we're very open and warm and inviting, but you only get one layer. Because most people are not thinking, oh, I don't know more about it. I don't know your name, where you're from.
You're just being entertained.
Yeah, they're not realising that, I haven't gone any deep. So only a few people after a while will clock like, we're not really going deep. I wouldn't say it affected negatively, really, to be fair. I'm very fortunate in all honesty. But there was honest conversations with some friends about the lack of depth that I would go to, and they didn't have an issue with it, they're just aware of it, but they knew that when I'm ready, I would do so. But people were able to go with me. And I said, well, do you think it's hypocritical? How can you share with me how much? And people said, oh, because of the fact that there's something about how you speak, you've got substance to you, and when you're ready, you would share. So yeah, I didn't have it negatively in that way. What did affect me though, growing up, not necessarily my depression, in terms of interaction, was my lack of defending myself. So I feel like in each areas of my life, I've had to go through like an emancipation. So in secondary school was when I decided, you can't mess with me. And then from year 8, I stopped getting bullied. Then when I started working when I was 15, 16, so it took till when I was 24 to learn how to be assertive in work. So I've kind of had to, in my I don't know if you call it personal, in my school life, it took another how many years? So from 2003, no more bullying. Then 2015, no more. Well, I would say I was bullied at work, but I meant that if anyone was rude to me at work, I would just be quiet. I wasn't able to be assertive. Since 2015, you can't chat to me when you're at work, bro. I'm like, what? But prior to that, I was bullied when I was working in a school in 2011, really, really bullied as a TA, teaching assistant. And then the day that I got emancipated, I call it my emancipation, the day I said, hell no, was another social worker who no one even liked. She was really rude to everybody. But to the point where she was arguing with me and insulting me as a social worker. She's way older than me. And it was that kind of thing of typical respect. She was white, but I was like, okay, I need to be respectful. I'm a believer as well. How do I approach this? I just said to her, no. I said to her something like, just because we have a disagreement, you do not have to talk about my qualifications. It's got nothing to do with that. I just disagree with you. Why are you going below the belt? And then she called the lecturer, and then she thought the lecturer was going to go on her side. The lecturer said, yes. He was so happy. He was like, this is good. As social workers, we should debate. And I smiled because her point of bringing him, because she thought he would be on her side. He was on no one's side. He was just like, well done. I could just see the annoyance in her face. And what happened is the next day on a Friday, nobody even spoke to her anyways. She was her and another friend was castigated. But in the beginning, on a Monday, they were the teacher's pet, talking over everybody. By the Friday, we all went out and left them. Right? But it was interesting because that was the first time I said, why am I just allowing people to disrespect me because everyone's older than me? Because I was always the youngest. And I just didn't know how to handle, again, being in a situation where somebody is being so rude to me because all I knew was to fight. I can't fight in work. I didn't know how to articulate myself. So it took me another 8 years from basically 15 to 24 to understand how to say, that's rude. Don't speak to me like
in
that.
like a kind but firm way.
Yeah, to be assertive. So that's kind of what's affected me. Like being bullied, how that can affect your kind of perception of yourself and then how you deal with situation. Because I dealt with everything in the fighting way, wasn't equipped with language to defend myself. When I became an adult, I didn't know how to use my language to defend myself, so I was shut down. Or I'll cry. And I'm not crying because I'm upset, I'm crying, I want to fight you. And I know I can't fight you. But I can't use my hand.
There's so much tension.
I don't know how. So it took me to that point. I will never forget that day in Middlesex Library when I was able, in Hendon, when I was able to say, do not speak to me like that. And it was her face, it was her shock. And I was like, okay, we ain't got to fight. Because I'm not going to ever fight anybody. But it was just the idea of, I can say, don't speak to me like that. Do not speak to me like that. I can communicate.
Yeah.
I might not be able to use the best words, but I can tell you why are you speaking to me? Because she was being so disgusting towards me. And the joke of it, I was defending somebody else. She was being nasty to somebody else. And I said, stop, just leave him alone. And these are adults, you know. Mind you, we're not talking about children.
Yeah.
We're talking about big adults. I'm 20-something. They're all in their 40s. Some of their kids are my age.
They say bullies never change.
Yeah. Basically, work is basically a school playground. You've got the jocks, you've got the popular lot, you've got the geek, you've got all of that. And it took me, I honestly thought when I was 16 and 15 when I started working that it would be better. And I think that's what also shocked me when I went into work, thinking that adults would be much better than kids. I've left secondary school bullying and politics. So when I got into work and I saw it was the same, I think that also took me a long time to realise that adults, it doesn't mean because you're 10, 15 years my senior, it doesn't mean you're any better. And even though I wouldn't take it to the streets, I like street principles. If you've got an issue with me, let's talk about it. But that's not how work is. Work is like I go to your manager, you're getting called in. I heard you had an issue with Tom.
Yeah.
And you're looking at Tom like, did we have an issue?
Yeah, and even that seems a bit childish.
It's so childish.
Tell you, like, reporting.
Do you know what I mean? And again, when I was younger, 17, 18, I didn't have the language to say, I just took it. I took being told off for no reason, being put in trouble for no reason. I didn't know how to say, there's something about this is wrong. And then you learn, wait a minute, when you do have an issue at work, you should address it first, whichever. Then you go to your manager. So I was always right, but I didn't know how to articulate myself. So I would be very timid at work and stuff, but not from 2015 though.
Yeah.
Not anymore. So I wouldn't say the depression, but all of the experiences growing up and not knowing how to articulate yourself and defend yourself, because I was bullied, I went straight to fight. Knowing I couldn't do that in work made it very difficult. How do I navigate myself? Also as a black woman, because even though I didn't go through many microaggressions, I'm very fortunate. There was that underlying microaggression on a few occasions. Because one of the significant moments at 17, when there was a white 30-year-old man who's 6 foot something told me I was aggressive to him. I remember saying I didn't know how to articulate this. This doesn't make sense. I'm 5'5", you're 6'1", I'm 17, you're nearly double my age, I'm the aggressive one. And he couldn't come into work for a few days, he went off sick. We had an argument over religion. Please tell me how that even makes sense. And the manager there, they were friends though, but the manager there is leaning towards her side. And I don't know how to use the language, but now I could say this is a microaggression. Because how can a 17-year-old black girl be aggressive to and maybe of course you can, but there was not that. We were having a conversation, debate. We had an issue, we had an argument, we had a good summer. Now we argue. You go to your friend who's your boss, and rather than come and address it to me, next minute I'm the aggressor. That don't make any sense. So, those are some of the interesting experiences that I've had to learn to overcome. And then now, I can use my language and I know how to defend myself and defend others, most importantly. And also, but it doesn't make it any easier because sometimes you don't know when somebody's just being rude to you, somebody's being racial. Sometimes it's very hard. And that's what makes being a black woman sometimes very difficult in the workplace because you don't always know, is it because of my gender? Is it because I'm black? Is it neither? You just don't like me. What is going on? Or in this passive aggressiveness, it gets really confusing. And that is partly why a lot of black women feel uncomfortable in a lot of workplaces because we just don't know. Like, I like to be around people, black or white, who are just straightforward. If you don't like me, let me know. One thing about black people, not all, but a lot of us, will cuss you out.
And then we'll
continue the next day. Sorry, but some of you white people, you're amazing, but you'll be doing, it's okay, Mo, it's okay.
Behind the scenes, they hate you.
Or you get one passive aggressive email and you be scratching your head thinking, that was 2 weeks ago. You still got an issue because of that. That's what makes it unsafe for us because you don't know how to be. Or you say a joke, everyone laughs, and then you get an email about certain jokes are inappropriate. That's happened to me. I'm saying these are things that my clients tell me that you're like, what? You say a joke, everybody laughs, and then you get emails saying there was a joke being passed around. We should be very careful about how jokes are. And we wonder why a lot of black people, black men, black women, you know, are leaving the workforce, are unhappy, are burning out, are stressed, are having mental health difficulties. Because imagine having mental health trauma, going off the topic, having trauma. Black people, we don't deal with it, unfortunately, all the time. Then we go into work, another type of trauma with our experiences. That's why you see so many of us coming into my service and services similar to mine, because we are confused, we are tired, we're getting it from our family, if we're African, we're not married early enough. There's so many things that we go through. You know what I mean? Why you're not pregnant? You can't get a promotion at work, you don't have it because you're black, you know. Imagine all of these things, let alone the crisis of life, let alone, you know, energy prices, let alone maybe your what do you call it, your landlord gives you 1 month notice. All of these factors that contribute make it really, really confusing. So therapy, coaching, all of these spaces are there to help people, you know, make sense of life, which is already confusing, because life can be very confusing.
Yeah. Heavy. So I do wonder, you know, now you've had all these experiences that were, you know, quite difficult growing up, and, you know, you scaled through eventually, which is a really, really brilliant thing. How did you go from Ngozi, who was struggling with her mental health when she was younger, who, you know, struggled to assert herself, or grew to eventually learn to be more assertive as a woman in the workplace, gaining confidence? How did you go from that to that now Ngozi, who's running a 6-figure business? Because that is a jump and a half. And it's a thing where...
Who's doing her doctorate as well? No, I'm joking. Who's got a TEDx coming out in a few days.
Okay, girl. Really?
You haven't done my TEDx on Sunday?
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah. Praise God.
How did you go from, you know, someone who has a lot of potential, but all these odds are stacked against you? I think that's the thing. Sometimes you have a lot of potential, but there's so many things
stacked against you.
So many obstacles that you have to fight through. How did you manage to get from there to where you are now, running a six-figure business, a confident woman, an assertive woman? You're doing your thing. You have your hands in many pots. Like, you don't just run frontline therapists. You also do the Ngozi Cadmus coaching. It's a coaching service, I believe, to help empower women. You know, you came from a school doing a talk. How did you go from that to where you are today?
Good question. I think that is part of it. So most people know when your back is against the wall, you either drop on the floor and stay there and not move, right? Or do something. That's what we go back to Nigeria. The reason why Nigerians do so well, especially when they leave that country, is because their backs are against the wall. When a Nigerian leaves Nigeria, they either go back to living below the poverty line. We think poverty is real here. Go to Africa. Let's be real. They know that basically they either die. When my mum came to this country, it was either die or make something of your life. What was she going to go back home? You're not going to move from one continent to another continent to do any less than what you can at least try and achieve. That's the motivation that not just Nigerians have, but any person that does come from a third world country. Not every single person, but for a lot of them, the reason why they do so amazing, better than the people that live in the land that they come from, is because they know where they're coming from. They're coming from no light. They're coming from, if you don't work, you die. So even though I didn't come from that country, yes, I did technically, but I was more or less raised here. Yeah. That's what my mum installed in me.
Resilience.
That level of resilience. And I think, this is my belief here. I honestly believe, right, that when I came to Christ, all of the latent potential, because...
When was that?
16.
Okay.
So I think, this is my theory of my life, right? Up until 16, everything was latent. So, you know, some people in the they're 5, 6, 8, people saw this greatness. Nobody ever said to Ngozi was great. I didn't go around like people saying to you that you were amazing. So I was never that prodigy child. I was not that. That's when I even look at my life, I think, wow, boy, I was just any random child. I do believe that latent potential, when Christ came into my life, that potential then shown. Because to me, it was when I was from 16, I got told, oh, I can see leadership qualities. I don't ever remember being told that before 16. So maybe I was that and I was so depressed I could never hear that. I do give that, because some of my friends that know me from secondary school say, oh, but you know, you were this. I'm like, okay, maybe I have a totally different picture. But for me, a lot of things happened when I came to Christ, where all of this supposed potential that I never knew I had, people can now see it. And I think, so with all of that adversity, and then Christ coming, that became the anchor to allow what you said to begin to flourish.
That's powerful. I didn't even, prior to this conversation, I didn't know that there was a moment where, you know, you became safe.
Well, it wasn't even a moment because I couldn't even tell the day, the moment. I just know over a period of time. But it had to be after salvation that all of these good qualities people attached to my name, to me, I remember. I don't remember being told anything. I'm not saying I ever got told I was a good person. I'm just saying that all of the qualities, like from age 16 or 17 was when every good thing, Ngozi, you're going to be a leader. Oh, you're really smart. I don't remember that prior to that. So maybe there was. But I do think that to me was my significant moment because I didn't have all of these. You know, when you watch like Stephen Bartlett and people show all of these great people, they would say when they were age 5, they were selling sweets, and I was like, bro, I didn't have any of that. I was not that child. I was the child that was bullied. I was the child that was just there. I was ignored. I was that child. To be fair, if you defined, if I was told what I was going to be, I do not think any of my primary school teachers would have said I'm going to be what I am now. There's also some school kids that you can see, they're going to be great one day. I was not that child. I'm sure, I can't say 100%, but I wouldn't be surprised if any teacher said, oh, I wonder what English is going to be when she grows up. Not what I'm doing now. So I was not that child. That's what I was the underdog. I kind of see myself as the underdog. No more. But I think I was an underdog child. So I was that child that no one really saw. I wasn't really, I was just not there. I was just there, And a lot of your audience can relate to that. But not, maybe even in your family, that one child, you're the other child that's like, oh yeah, you're here. But everyone was like, Atinu, she's going to do amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, what about Tracy? Well done, my daughter. Well done, my daughter. I was the only child, so fortunately I had my mum to only give me that attention. I didn't experience that in my household, but I experienced that kind of feeling of just being dismissed and not being seen in my life outside of home. So for me, when I look, it's taken me up until last year to even sit. So even you telling me this stuff, I can sit with that. Whereas a year and a half ago, I'd be so uncomfortable you telling me all these good stuff because it felt weird to tell me I'm amazing when my formative years was totally the opposite of that.
As you're speaking, 3 words come to mind: seen, loved, and approved. And I always want to be careful when we talk about the gospel on this channel because I believe the promise of Christ is salvation.
Yeah.
It's not all the prosperity, it's not your potential.
All that is a side effect.
It's not your purpose or whatever, or prosperity gospel reloaded.
It's a side effect.
So seek ye first the kingdom of God.
That's it.
Every other thing will be added onto you. So the one thing that God is concerned about is that your soul is saved. So I always want to be very careful when I talk about the gospel. But literally, as you were speaking, those 3 words came to mind: seen, loved, approved. And I think, whilst I believe God cares about your salvation the most, and that is the one promise of when you come to Christ, I do believe that God cares for you, and He cares for your needs, and He cares for your being. And I think that when you come to Christ, and again, this was not where I anticipated this conversation going at all, but I think it's so interesting because one of the biggest things about coming into Christ is that He really does show you that you are seen. He really does show you that you are loved and that you are approved, even beyond the things that you achieve. And it's interesting that when you experience that love is now when it radiates out
100%.
into the world.
100%. Because He's my father, but I didn't have a father. My father not only abandoned me, wanted my mum to adopt me.
Sorry.
And when I think about that, before I was born, I was already rejected by my dad.
Wow.
But part of the reason my mum, she kept me because she wanted me, but she kept me because she was like, this guy's not gonna, I'm gonna have you. I was not planned, but she was gonna have me. So my very existence was in rejection. So that's how I experienced the majority of my life. Other than my mum, I just did not feel like anybody cared. Because, some people say my dad wasn't there by the stepdad. I never had any person I've never had a father figure. So when Christ came into my life and introduced the father, that was also been the biggest battle.
That's so good. Oh my goodness.
That's also been the biggest battle, and that's probably what's enabled me to overcome my true, depression. Having a father is so important as a woman is because your father established your identity. I don't know if I would have had mental health issues if I had a father because he would have installed something different in me. I may have still gone through certain experiences, but definitely the way I went through life wouldn't have been the same because I would have had a father to install my values, to install so many things I didn't have. So when I came to Christ and I had that, then, and it's taken a long time, it was not like in that moment I just then believed, but instinctively, because your instincts change when you come to Christ, right? Even though you have to now kind of retrain and renew your mind, I instinctively knew I was worth something, but prior to that, I didn't know I was worth something. I instinctively knew that I was loved and valued, that I was approved, all of these things without having to do anything. So then everything I do is just as a result from that place, as a result from that security.
It's almost like they say that life is like a mirror, you know, like what you're seeing outside is really what's going on inside. I mean, obviously there's limitations to that. We know that sometimes you do just go through trials and tribulations. But I think there's a level of self-esteem. I've just noticed people that are doing really well, they tend to have this level of self-esteem and security
because
in
you
themselves.
have to bet on yourself.
Yes.
So we're saved or unsaved. When you come out of the matrix, which is the 9 to 5, I have nothing wrong. I think we need doctors. People that say 9 to 5 is like, don't you want a doctor? Don't you want a lawyer? Anyways, but when you come out of the rigmarole of just the rat race, the only thing you're betting on yourself is yourself. Right? Now with me, as a believer, I'm betting on myself with the Lord. I'm like, Lord, there ain't really no net. It's either this works or doesn't work. Right? And that's where the confidence comes from. Is because when you create something out of nothing, like Abraham, like Isaac, like Jacob, like all the patriarchs, that's what power is. True creation isn't just being good at drawing or being good at singing. True creation is, because God is the creator, he's the ultimate creator. He created this world out of nothing through his words, let there be light. So when you create something out of nothing, when you create an idea, when you create a business, when you create a YouTube, you're bringing your imagination to life. That's where the security comes from. And also is when you're going through a process, the whole point of confidence and security is you go through a process that refines you. So it's in the refining that you're getting the confidence. Many believers and many people that are doing this are not confident because we're confident. We're confident because when our confidence are when our security is taken from that, God says, okay, run to me then. So my confidence is in the Lord.
Yeah.
It has to go to him.
Yeah,
before or
right
after
now.
is him. That's all I have.
Yeah. I mean, you know a bit about my story. Like, I was freelance in 2019. That was when I really took the plunge. And, a really interesting year. Lots of lessons, but also very tough in some moments. And from after the pandemic, I lost my confidence. I would say that I lost my confidence in really going for it. And God's gonna come through for me and and I recently came across something where it was a lot of us, we think our security is in our job, but actually God is the source. Your job is just a resource. And it really made me think about the times when I was freelancing and doing this business thing. God was always my source. It wasn't because I was that great at what I was doing. I was doing videography at the time to sustain myself. But now I'm at a crossroads again where I really want to do this. My show, presenting. I feel like even the videography back then was a bit of a crutch that let me have something outside of what I really want to do to make sure that there's a bit of something. But it's like I've just been hearing that thing as you're talking. That's why I said I'm triggered. As you're talking, it's like I'm here. I'm feeling this thing recently that's like Mo, this is enough. I think sometimes when we're doing, and there's nothing wrong with being multifaceted. But I think sometimes when we're doing the multiple things, it's because of that lack of security in the one thing or the thing that you're called to. And I'm really just trying to lean back into that and regain my confidence in the sense of God will sustain me. It's a lot of faith walking.
And also strategy. God will give you strategy as well.
Amen. Yeah.
He will give you the people that, let's say literally God will give you strategy. Everything that I'm doing is God's strategy. Right? Like the same way God gave Moses the blueprint of the tabernacle. He saw it first where? In heaven. So your strategy of your career has already been written in heaven. So what we do is we do God, faith. But God is not saying, God, why are you acting blind? Are you stupid? I've given you wisdom. Just seek help and seek advice. Come to me. Come to people that I've put around you. Seek advice. If you want to go plunge in your business and say, God might say, save up 10K, do the next year and a half, grind, save money. Ooh. That is your backup thing. Why do people do that? I'm gonna just leave my job. And then when it doesn't work, God, why? Because did I tell you to not have a pot of money?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Where did that come from? Some people can do it. That's people. Everybody wants that testimony. You hear the testimony. I just left my job on a Monday and I secured 20K on a Friday. That is not everybody's testimony. That happens once in a very blue mess. That's out of the norm, right? Most people, God does things in wisdom. That is still a miracle. So you leave your job on a Monday. If that's 6 months, that is still a miracle. Not everybody gets the Friday testimony. God might say, okay, in the next year and a half, I am preparing you, but you're going to have to grind, save up 10K, and that will be your backup for the next year and a half. But people will do, I have to show faith, and then you give up your job, and then next minute you're scratching your thinking, what happened? Your confidence is saying, okay, Lord, you've truly called me to this. I really believe that I want to do this. Okay, what are the next steps for me to get there? How much do I need if I'm going to focus on this full force to live a decent life? That
was another thing for me. It was a thing where, when the freelance, like I said, a strategy or a mentality that I've recently adopted is you don't have that. My money's not with you, and I think sometimes as well in your career as a freelancer, entrepreneur, whatever it may be, sometimes your money is not right now. So people don't reap the benefits of this thing until their 40s, 50s. I want to reap it earlier than that, but you don't know God's plans for you. Tabitha Brown, killing it right now in America. She was an Uber driver for a while, just grinding and getting her head down, and she was doing her live videos on Instagram, and her story is really, really amazing and inspirational. I watched a few of her interviews, and she didn't get to reap the benefits of that grind until she was like in her 40s or her 50s. But even Oprah, that I look up to and I love, although I think she got the Oprah Winfrey Show in her 30s, so she was doing things in media, but she was working for a while. She did, again, a lot of these things you don't get to reap the benefits until later. So I get what you're saying in terms of there has to be some level of strategy as well. And that was one of the reasons why I kind of voted against like fully freelancing. Right now I work part-time to kind of give me the space and flexibility to still be creative but still have some stability. When I was fully freelancing, it was really difficult to live a decent life because it was like there were some things that I just couldn't afford perfume. Just extra little things that makes life a bit more comfortable, and who knows, maybe that was my sowing season, but it was tough. You don't want to go through some sufferings that you went through. You don't want to go through it again.
Some are not necessary. Some of them are not necessary. We put them on ourselves.
That is the thing.
When you come up with suffering, you actually realize, hi, this one was self-inflicted. When you go to sleep, when you go to bed late because you're watching a movie, then you wake up in the morning and go, what did I do? The Nigerian phrase is, who sent me? Who sent you? Who sent? That's it. They're self-inflicted. It's not like you were there labouring for a friend who was crying and you went to bed late. You're there watching Netflix. Then you wake up like this. Hi, I'm tired. What was it that I did? It was that movie on Netflix. Out itself. Who sent me? That's what it was. Wisdom is important, Yeah, God sometimes sits there and watches and goes, my children know. God's a funny father, He's sweet and merciful. He just sits there and go, this one, okay, let her go through that one. It's okay. She'll eventually get here then. It's the same. It's what but you still learn. The question that you need to make sure is that what did you learn? Because you're saying you need to get back your confidence, and I totally get that. And I think that is fair enough, right? But where I would say that sees a notch in a negative way is the fact that you lost confidence in that,
especially post-COVID, like when everything shut down. Yeah, I lost a lot of confidence.
Instead of seeing it as you just learn to pivot, what you realise about yourself is, do you know how much it takes to do freelance, go self-employed, to go back to employed, and they go back? A lot of people can't do that. They go once and they say, that's it, I'm not doing it again, it failed. You said, you know what, you've pivoted. That's what business is about. I think the thing about social media is people don't talk about their failures until after they've been successful. Then they say, there was a period of time I had no money. But we all look at you now with money. It's difficult to fully visualise what it was like. So even when we heard Tyler Perry's story, it's inspirational. But really and truly, since I've known Tyler Perry, he had money. Since I knew Tyler Perry, when he was in 1990 in the car, I was a child. I didn't know him then.
No, it was just him and God.
So when I met Tyler Perry, he had money. Now he has even more money. So it's only those that maybe were there watching his story would be like, wow, they saw when he was in his car. And so it sounds good. But that's one thing I love about you, Mo, is that seeing your journey is very inspirational because you're showing everybody right there and now. So when in 2 years, 3 years time, when you are like, life is good, people can say, you can't say, I used to. No, watch the video. Let me show you the video where I was, dates, time, that's it. When I was all confused and show you that it's a journey. Some people do get that instantaneous thing, but for most people, the norm, you have to grind. You have to grind. But it's in the grind that you learn the most about yourself. In your success, you're not going to learn much about yourself.
You're already stamped and like you're formed.
Yeah. It's in this moment that you learn. It's in this moment where God is endowing you with a lot of trust, because he puts many people up there and they fail him. So you're being prepared and you're being refined and you're being pruned, because the worst thing is to get to success and to compromise, to get success and to let him down. Because a lot of successful people are letting God down now. Not that they're not saying God, but just their life, just the way they're acting, the way they are, they forgot themselves. Pride is such a delicate thing that is scary, the amount of people that get into pride. The amount of believers that get into pride. They don't think they're prideful. That's what's so scary about it.
Most of these things is not until it's someone on the outside that will tell you that you're proud.
But then they're no longer with people that knew them beforehand. Because when your status changes, your friends change, right? It's hard to keep those friends. That's why very few celebrities or very few public speakers or very few entrepreneurs have those friends, because it's hard. And sometimes it's not because you want to, it's because if you're always going to Miami, you're going to only be with people that can just say, tomorrow, let's go to Miami. If most of my friends would say, I plan,
and even then, I
wait.
feel like a lot of people become yes men and women around you, because you've got the money. You're sponsoring the trips.
Yeah.
You can just say...
Because if you say no, some people don't want to hear that. Or you get a lecture, or it becomes... Because if I said no to you right now, I'm seeing your face, right? But let's say you even have more... You have power in that. And I say no to you. People are petty. People's egos get bruised really easily. Every celebrity says it at a point in time that even calm down. Say, I even thought I was a god. I thought I was... There's a point where you get... Imagine just getting told you're great all the time. You're amazing. You're wonderful. You're excellent. Everything is thrown at your feet.
I think self-esteem is a good thing, but I think that kind of humility is also important.
100%.
It's important to see yourself, but it's also important not to see yourself. Because when you start to see yourself too much, that's when pride manifests. It's important to see yourself, but don't fully see yourself. That humility has to be there to really carry you all the way. Otherwise, pride will take over.
It's like Kanye West.
Say, pride comes before a fall.
That's it. It's like Kanye West, right? Kanye West is prideful because he thinks he's great, rather than recognizing that he's great because Christ makes him great.
So it's good to see yourself as great.
It's good to see yourself.
It's good to see
It's good to see him as great, but know where it comes from. They are incredible other women. I can tell you, but if God came to me and said, Ngozi, I want you to meet all of the other people that are just as good, or even better, but I've given you grace and favour over them. Esther in the Bible, my namesake. Mordecai said, if you do not do what you have to do, relief will come elsewhere. That meant that God had a second person. There was another Esther there that was there. Hey, if you don't do it, I will come. When the person that went to, was it Ananias, that went to take Saul's eyes before he became Paul, he said, yes, Lord. If he didn't answer, God would have found somebody else that said yes, Lord, to go to get to open Paul's eyes. The idea that it is only me, I'm very aware that God's grace is what's keeping me here.
Assignment and vessels. I keep getting random words as you're speaking. Assignment.
That's what's important.
And vessels.
So that's why I know I'm a damn good whatever it is, speaker, writer, but also recognize that what makes me damn good is the Lord. Because there are other great people there, and I see people but don't get the same grace, and I realize that it's just grace and mercy. It's just favour. Two of us can be walking the same walk, and why do I surpass them? I ain't any better than them. It's grace and favour. That's why when you recognize truly that every single person, saved or unsaved, but especially if you're saved, that's doing amazing, don't hate on them. It's grace or favour. Your time will come.
Amen.
Your time will come.
Amen.
Because there'll be people that you will know that outwork you, even out-talent you, and you go above them. Why? Because grace and favour. I ain't the smartest person. Like I said, the reason why I'm here is grace and favour. Because other people...
There's a scripture on this. Yeah. I think there's a scripture that says, the race is not to the swiftest or the fastest, but time and chance happens to them all. And there's another one that says, it's in vain that you rise up in the morning and toil until night, but God gives sleep to his beloved, or something like that. And those two scriptures always anchor me whenever I feel like I'm starting to hustle too much or trying to earn my blessings, or I'm comparing myself to other people. My last question to you was going to be like, what's it like now on the other side? You know, running a 6-figure big business, you know, all these things that you're a very multifaceted person. I was going to ask you, how do you maintain that? But I feel like the last 5-10 minutes that we've been talking has really answered that question, unless there's anything else that you kind of wanted to add to that. How are you sustaining and maintaining on this side? I know we've already mentioned the grace of God. And,
take obviously therapy, friends, groundedness, really being grounded. And you know what? Let me be very honest with you. People are not honest online. Take each day as it comes. Some days I'm happy than others, some days I'm not. And I'm just constantly reflecting on, okay, why am I not like this? Why am I not like that? Where does it come from? What's going on? What's happening? Checking in with yourself all the time. If I don't feel good, then, I don't feel good, speak to my husband about it, speak to friends about it, speak to my therapist about it. But I think it's understanding that I'm not under an illusion anymore. I don't hold a mask anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's what's important. That's how I sustain myself. Not creating a mask. I'm only going to be me, and me is happy sometimes, not happy another time. But the biggest thing is just, I would also add to it, is just worshipping God, every single day, every moment. What does the Bible say? Any thought that is, what's the 2 Corinthians 5?
Pulling down strongholds and everything that is not.
Because there's thoughts all the time. Thoughts that are coming into your head is now, if you focus on that, it's a bit weird. It's a bit of a trick though, but also sleeping well, because when I'm tired or if I've got a bad day, that's when the thoughts that you've been ignoring the other days start to go, oh, you're rubbish. Who do you think you are? I and any other person your audience thinks is successful is just as prone as that, but they've just got a greater habit or more discipline in ignoring that. Because if I tune into that, I will wake up and say, I can't bother to go to my talk. I could easily cancel my talk. I could cancel today. I don't really feel good today. I've got other appointments. I can say, I can't be bothered. But no, I've got a duty and responsibility to finish my race.
Oh. Gosh, guys, that was such a fantastic conversation, was it not? That was so awesome. Ngozi, thank you.
No, thank you for giving me the space.
Much.
This one was so much better than the one that
it was. You see everything.
That one was time we had to be, this one was just more relaxed.
See what I mean about having a studio and having your own space? It's, you flow a bit more.
Yeah, I think, that's why I said to the Lord, look at how when this one would be better than all the others because of the fact they happened at the right time. Right, comfortable, and maybe that was just our preliminary getting to know each other, and now we can have a really engaging, because this was longer. That one was like quick 1 hour, boom, 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 but this one was just like, we just talked, we just free flowed.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. It blessed me. This conversation really blessed me, and I hope it blessed you guys at home as well. You. Where can we find you and all the things you do? Please let them know.
Mo Chunks fans, please follow me at Ngozi Cadmus, so NGOZI CADMUS. On Instagram. Follow me on LinkedIn if you guys on LinkedIn, all that stuff. But yeah, I've got my TEDx coming out in a couple of days. How to disrupt the absence of black women leaders at the top of corporate Britain. So I'm really here to disrupt the status quo and saying black women, especially, we deserve to be at the top, because that's where the decisions are being made. We no longer can be crying out for decisions that have already been made. We need to be there with our influence and input. So yeah, if you want me to speak at a school or speak at wherever, or however you want to connect with me, just connect with me on my social media platforms and we can talk.
Nice, lovely, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And you guys at home, thank you for watching. Do make sure you like this episode if you liked it. Share it with your friends. Comment below on the things we spoke about, and subscribe to this channel for more. Until next time, guys, peace and love. Peace and chunks.